Welcome into the Sports Buffoons podcast.
I have a favorite guy. Is there somebody that you would say is the best? Like, who is the overall best to ever play the game?
I would say Mike Trout.
Okay,
Mike Trout.
Mike Trout is the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
Now, you said something about Mark McGwire there. So, what do you think about the steroid issue? Do you think that ruined the game back in the day?
Let's see. That's tough because there's a lot of context behind that. Because the only ones who were showcased in the whole steroid era are the McGwires, the Sosas, the big names, the Bonzes, the A-Rods. When in reality, like every backup second baseman was probably also using it, and it was probably running rampant in every minor league. But again, I don't know that for sure. But I think it was not good for the game in terms of fairness and overall just the purity of the game. But from a popularity standpoint, it was probably a really good thing for the game because it got a lot of younger people interested, and that's obviously a positive byproduct of the steroid era. But it does absolutely destroy the purity of the game. But back then, that was a fairly common thing, I imagine, and now it's not. But
yeah, I feel like it was a fairly common thing. But when I look back on that, and when I was growing up, my favorite player, obviously on the Royals, was George Brett. But outside of the Royals, my favorite player was Ken Griffey Jr. And to this day, that guy, nobody ever raised an issue with him has ever done steroids.
yeah.
And so I look at a guy like that. I mean, is it something where you think that 100% of the players were doing it? Or, I mean, can we put a percentage on it? How can we prove who was doing it and who wasn't? Because, as a fan, I looked at Ken Griffey Jr., and even to this day, I was like, oh my gosh, that guy was like a god because he never did steroids, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And, he was just, he was a stud back then.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of the context behind steroids and the steroid era comes into play. Was I do think that there was a majority of players probably using steroids, but at the end of the day, Barry Bonds may have been using steroids, but guess what? Barry Bonds was Barry Bonds before he was steroid Barry Bonds. I could have been using as many roids on the same cycle in the same setting as Barry Bonds, and I'm still probably not going to be as good as Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was still more talented, which he was a Hall of Famer no matter what. So there could, even if there was 100% people using steroids, that doesn't mean 100% of players are good. There's still a talent aspect to that.
Oh yeah.
That's not ever contextually looked at.
Quick recap of the game, by the way, against the Cleveland Browns. The Chiefs won 22-17. Anything you want to say or mention about that game in particular? For myself, I was very worried whenever I saw Chad Henne come in. I was very pacing back and forth. I thought for sure that this would be the old Chiefs of the past. The old playoff history was going to come back and bite us like it hasn't before times without Mahomes, as we know. And it did come down to that. Once Mahomes went out with an injury, I felt like it might have been our doomsday once again. But Chad Henne prevailed. The defense stepped up at times. What do you guys think about this game?
Yeah, with Chad Henne, I mean, I was never worried about it. I never thought that we were going to choke in this game. Like Patrick Mahomes said, anything is possible.
So many Henne puns.
But as you guys know on this show, it doesn't matter what the sport is that we're talking about. I go defense first. So not surprising to me that Spagnuolo and that defense, they forced Cleveland to punt. And so that defense was top 7, guys, most of the year, so don't forget that. They ended up a little bit lower because, they had their backups in that Week 17 game. But looking at that gutsy call by Andy Reid, what do you guys think about that call? Because I don't think they really needed it. I believed in that moment. I believed in the Chiefs' defense. And in general, I believe in that Chiefs defense in clutch situations. And so while I appreciate the gutsy call by Andy Reid to go for it on 4th down, I think we still would have stopped them.
Jason, we got the most weapons on offense. Chad Henne is now playing with the backups. I love that call. I love being aggressive. You need to play that way to win the game, to win the playoffs, guys. That made me so happy for that call, just because of how aggressive he wasn't. He's confident with Henne, and it shows it. He's confident with Chad Henne, and he used our number one weapon in Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, well, he also showed that he might have been a little bit too confident in Chad Henne, based on the fact that they drew up that play with Chad Henne throwing the long bomb, pretending that he was Patrick Mahomes, and then Chad Henne threw an interception. And I feel like in some ways that's a good thing, because I feel like Chad Henne is going to learn a good lesson from that, and offensive coordinator is going to learn a good lesson from that. So
I'm not worried about that play. I really wasn't. Like, it was a bomb. It could have been Chad Henne's decision to throw that ball in the first place. He
was a
saw
bad
something,
decision, Tanner.
and it was a horrible decision. Obviously, it's a turnover. It's killed the drive.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
But
But here's the thing: if that game was earlier on, say that happened in the second quarter,
that would have been trouble.
then the Browns take over from there.
Because the
And we're
Browns
in trouble at that
Browns ran the ball actually fairly decent.
That
in
happened
the
in the
fourth
stage of
quarter,
the game where we still controlled the points as well as the clock. So
Correct.
That's where we had the luck on our side, but came down to the defense making plays there at the end to control that whole thing as well. Chad Henne is not a guy we want to have playing anytime soon for this team on offense, despite the talent we have on our team as it is.
But hey, we know we appreciated the effort and that third down run. Like we aren't going to the next round without that run. So
True, give him credit for that. Absolutely, it was a 14.5-yard run,
who knew Chad Henne could run that
and then
fast?
we got the last half a yard for that pass to Tyreek Hill to finish off the game,
It's like watching Steve Young out there.
which was yeah, right, Tanner. Well, a right-handed Steve Young.
That's right.
That's the thing was basically getting a correct play call for the right situation.
And so this game coming up on Sunday between the Bucs and the Chiefs is going to impact the legacy of both of the guys on this top 5 list that I have. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, to be clear, we're going to break this game down for you guys on Wednesday night live on this program. So I'm not going to get into that right now. But we do need to ask the question, how will the potential outcomes affect the legacies of these two guys? Well, I'll start off with Tom Brady. So you got to understand, Tom Brady, he can only help his legacy at this point in this game. He cannot hurt his legacy. He's basically playing with house money because he just won his 10th conference championship in his career. He's headed to his 10th Super Bowl, which is ridiculous when you think about it. So his goal is to put that GOAT status completely out of reach for Patrick Mahomes. And I do believe it is a tall task for Brady to try to win a game against this Chiefs team that is loaded with talent, and they've got an amazing coaching staff. However, I think it would even be a taller task for Patrick Mahomes to try to catch Tom Brady if Tom Brady somehow pulls out a win in this game and gets that 7th Super Bowl ring. So, reason I say that is because I'm going to say it right now. Tom Brady's coming back next year. So there's been a lot of talk about this. You know, the guy's already said he's going to play till age 45. So he's only 43 right now. So he's already laid it out for everybody that he's coming back. So I don't understand why people are trying to speculate that maybe he'll just either win or lose the Super Bowl and then not come back. Just call it quits like Drew Brees. So make no mistake, this guy, he's got another year left on his contract, and he's still got a chip on his shoulder, regardless of what happens in this year's Super Bowl. And so, like I said, 1 year left on the contract, and he just doesn't strike me as being the type of guy to just kind of
tell the Bucks, yeah, I don't think I want to play next year. Even though he's already told the entire world that he wants to play until he's 45 years old. So Brady's going to be back. And I think for all you Brady fans out there, it's pretty safe to say that if you haven't done so already, go out and buy that Bucks jersey because this guy's going to be around for a while. Now, on the Patrick Mahomes side of this, when you look at his legacy going forward, this game has got a much greater impact on his legacy than it does for Tom Brady. Because if Patrick Mahomes wins, that's going to be his second Super Bowl win. But just as important is the fact that he will prevent Tom Brady from getting his seventh Super Bowl win. So to me, Mahomes has a lot more incentive to win this game. Although with Brady, he has some incentive as well because he knows that if he gets that seventh Super Bowl win, that it's possible that he could put his GOAT status out of reach for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it would be very difficult for Patrick Mahomes to catch Tom Brady if Tom Brady's sitting there with 7 Super Bowl rings. And so the other issue here is that it's easily conceivable that we're going to do this all over again
And
next
as
year,
we all
guys.
know, the Brooklyn Nets got the one and only James Harden. Now, I talked about this when I did my preseason rankings for the NBA just a few weeks back. And I told you guys that I had the Nets probably about right in the range of my fifth or my sixth best team in the NBA, and that was in the preseason. And so I also said in the preseason that it was going to be a boring NBA season unless James Harden went to the Nets. I did not want to see him really on any other team. I said that if he went to the Sixers, yeah, that would be interesting, but it wasn't going to really make them a contender. And so I said on that show, I said the only way we have an interesting season this year is if James Harden goes to the Nets. Otherwise, it was going to be a runaway for the LA Lakers. And so that is not the case anymore, guys. So I do want to give you my Final Four prediction. As we move forward here, I see the Final Four, and I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my Final Four in the NBA. I've got the Nets, Bucks, Clippers, and Lakers. And so a couple questions here for the Nets. What do I think about their roster? And the other question is, how do they stack up to the LA Lakers? Well, I love the fact that they were able to keep Joe Harris. The Nets were able to keep Joe Harris, who is a really great three-point shooter. He shoots the three ball at 43% for his career. And I also like the fact that they were able to keep DeAndre Jordan. Now, he is 32 years old, but I still think that DeAndre Jordan has a lot left in the tank, even though he's not quite as good as he was a couple of years ago. But I just like the fact that they didn't have to give up the farm. And that was my point in the preseason. I thought there's no way that the Nets would be able to pull off a trade like this because I thought that they would have to give up the entire farm and draft picks all over the place, which they did. They gave up tons of draft picks, but I was just happy that they were able to keep some sort of a roster rather than just giving everything away. So looking at the Nets, the way I see it right now, guys, this is basically almost the same big three that we saw play for Oklahoma City in 2012. The difference is, obviously OKC back in 2012, they had Harden, Durant, and Westbrook. So the only difference here is that you have Kyrie Irving instead of Russell Westbrook. Well, when I look at Kyrie Irving, I like to call him a rich man's Russell Westbrook if he's healthy, because when Kyrie's healthy, he can obviously shoot the ball much better than Russell Westbrook. He's a big-time scorer, and
The other thing that he has that Russell Westbrook does not have is that championship pedigree. And so to me, the 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder Big Three, yeah, that was a great team. Probably should have won the finals that year, but they ran into LeBron James and the Miami Heat, so they didn't get it done. But when I look at this Big Three of the Nets, I feel like they are the 2012 Oklahoma City Big Three on steroids. And so you look back at that 2012 Thunder team, James Harden only put up 17 points per game. And the very next year when he went to Houston, that went up to 26 points per game. And in 2019, as we all know, he averaged 36 points per game. So was there a big change in Harden's game between 2012 and 2013 when he went to Houston? No. He didn't improve that much. It's all about his usage rate. So 2012, Harden was playing with Westbrook and Durant. That's the only reason why he was only averaging 17 points per game. So when you go from 2012 to his 2013 season with Houston, a lot of people think, oh, he got so much better in 2013. No, he really didn't. His usage rate went up. So that was the big difference there. My biggest question for the Nets right now is Kyrie Irving going to stay healthy? And is he going to play? Is he going to join the team soon? Well, Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reported that Kyrie Irving is actually going to play in tonight's game against Orlando as long as he clears the COVID-19 protocol.
Here and just kind of the thought of some of the news of the week of the NFL anyway, of J.J. Watt officially signing with the Arizona Cardinals as his team of choice. He got a 2-year, $31 million deal out of it. And this was apparently the source was himself, according to Twitter.
That's
he
correct.
said on Twitter, I'm signing with the Arizona Cardinals. Source me.
And he's doing the weightlifting picture with looked like a squat with his Cardinal T-shirt.
He used to actually be like a delivery boy there for a while when he was in college, I believe. So I wonder. So
Did you hear about the story of how he got the T-shirt? Did you hear about that whole story?
Which
about
T-shirt is this?
So the Cardinals T-shirt he's wearing. So he funny story with JJ. He talked about it on I think Pat's show. He had his brother's friend order like 6 different teams' T-shirts off of Amazon. He couldn't do it himself because he was afraid that somebody would blow cover. Right? They'll be like, oh, look, I'm doing a rounds for JJ. So he had his brother's friend order 6 T-shirts of different teams so he could do it that way.
Okay.
And apparently his brother's friend did not know how to use anything. And so it took them about 2 hours to order it off of Amazon.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how technology, like, it's like you guys doing what
That's
I was
like us
doing.
trying to set up the podcast
Yeah,
each week.
exactly. You guys, not me. But yeah, it took him that long. And then so his whole idea was that he wanted to be the one to break the news, which is kind of cool as a player, as a big figure like him to be able to do that. So when he chose Arizona, he already had that T-shirt, but he had other shirts ready just in case.
Tanner, that sounds like National Signing Day to me.
Yeah,
I
pretty
mean,
much,
when high
right?
schoolers are going pro, or not going pro, but going to pick their colleges, they got all the hats set out there. So JJ just had his T-shirts ready then for his workout, and
I wish he
ready
would
to
have actually
post.
done it similar to that, like have his T-shirts out and then like fake a Rams.
Oh,
and then
dude, the fake where like one
Cardinals.
guy picks up a hat, he goes, never mind, puts it away and puts on the other one.
Pick the Texans again, and then
Oh gosh, yeah, we've seen some funny signing days in the past, I think. But we brought you on to the show today because you are our KU expert, as I said earlier, and you are actually JG's brother. I don't know if we already pointed that out, but you being the KU expert, and I know KU's had a weird season so far to this point, sitting at 12-6 in the conference, 18-8 overall, but 4-6 on the road. It seems not quite up to par for what they normally do year in, year out. Baylor currently sits at the top of the Big 12.
they just
So-
won it actually last night on overtime.
They did
against
officially
West Virginia.
win.
Yeah, they won it
Okay.
last night against West Virginia in overtime.
Well, there we have it. So you, Tanner, and Troy, you two probably have plenty to debate here for a few minutes. What are your thoughts on the KU at the moment as far as the basketball season that they've had at this point and going forward into March Madness starting here in a few weeks.
Troy, I'll let you start it off, man.
Hey, I'll go. Thank you. First of all, congrats to KU. Just signed maybe a couple hours ago. It was announced. I don't know if you saw it yet, but they got Grady Dick, who is probably the top junior out of Kansas. So congrats to them. I think that's a big pickup. He'll be joining the team here in a couple years. So that's a great signing. But this year has been, I think we're still feeling the wrath of the NCAA investigations, which is a whole nother topic. We could spend a whole show on that, and that needs to go away. But the bottom line is here with all these rankings and the standings and everything else, it all needs to be based on the body of work. And when we look at Baylor, they just don't have the body of work. They've stuck on a preseason ranking that they had all their teams coming back, players coming back from last year. And so preseason, they were a top team. And but now that the season's gone along, they just haven't had the body of work. So I think he's right there with them, and we showed that last week.
Oh, sorry, Troy. I think we lost you for a minute here. You there?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's back.
There we go. Okay, we got you back.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah. So, I was just saying again, body of work is the key for me with us compared to Baylor, and Baylor's just not got it. I know they were living off the preseason ranking. They were a top team, but they haven't had the body of work throughout the season, and I think KU's right there with them.
I fully agree with you on that. I mean, they've skipped out. Baylor has skipped out on Gonzaga, right? They should have played Gonzaga early in the year, should have got rescheduled, and that's completely been skipped for this year. They should have played West Virginia. I think they only played them once, and because one got canceled, and then this one they won last night. Like Baylor, I don't know. Do you like Baylor? Isn't worthy of a number one seed yet? Are they? Like, do they have to win the Big 12 tournament to be worthy?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Troy.
No, they've got 5 wins against ranked teams this year. But back to the body of work, they've canceled 6 games against ranked teams. So, to put them up there, yeah, they won the Big 12. Even though 6 of those games were canceled, they've still got 3 left, and very easily they could lose 2 out of 3 of those if they even get played.
Looks like, so I see to say they have 2 left, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, and then they hit the Big 12 tournament. Doesn't look like they're replaying too many. It doesn't like the other Texas Tech, the OU game, the TCU game. We know West Virginia's canceled, and Oklahoma State, like, these guys are only playing them once. And this is kind of ridiculous for that part. Yes, it's a lot of games at once before the tournament time, but I don't know, man. It's pretty struggle.
Yeah, I agree with both of you on the body of work argument. I mean, we all know when you go to March Madness, the seeding doesn't matter. So the thing I like the most right now about the Jayhawks is that they're peaking at the right time. And that's what we love to see in any sport, basketball, football, baseball. And right now, Joe Lunardi has them slotted as a number 3 seed. But I think when it's all said and done, KU could have a shot at a number 2 seed. They've won 6 out of their last 7 games. The only loss was that overtime road game against Texas. And the other thing I just like is that, early in the season, and even before that Baylor win, there was a lot of doubters and naysayers when you talk about the Jayhawks. And that's actually what you want, because I think it's a huge motivational factor. I mean, Bill Self even said that he believes that this is the toughest conference in America. So I think it's safe to say that the Jayhawks are battle tested, and I would actually have them as a dark horse to win the national
James, guys, goes down on a hard hustle play. And it was not a dirty play, as much as everybody says it was. It's not a dirty play. Very unfortunate to see this as an MVP run as well. But what does this do for the Lakers? This hurts them very terribly. This is a heartbreaker for the Lakers right now. As I roll over here the standings, right now the Lakers are sitting at a 4 seed, 20-16. They're on a 3-game losing streak, aka since LeBron left. Kuzma is not going to do it, guys. AD is not healthy enough to come back. We were talking about the Celtics making a move. I think if one team needs a move right now, and that's going to be the Lakers. Lakers need somebody. Maybe Victor. I think more of an Aaron Gordon than a Victor Oladipo would be great. Kyle Lowry wouldn't hurt, but I don't think he's going to be worth anything really. I think you're looking at Aaron Gordon. Like we have to get something else the Lakers to keep them relevant. Because I think honestly, the Nuggets and the Trailblazers and the Spurs all pass them. I think they're sitting at possibly a 6 seed or to 8 seed by the time the playoffs come around. And I mean, that's LeBron's going to be out for at least 3 to 4 weeks, possibly longer. With they say his age and everything like that. The guy's always bounced back earlier than anticipated on injuries outside of his first year he was with the Lakers where he sat out. So it's pretty unfortunate for the Lakers because they were in great position. The Clippers have overtaken them. I'm still not too worried about the Clippers right now. But the Lakers are hurting. The Lakers are going to drop. Guys, Lakers could be a 7 seed going to the NBA Finals because LeBron comes back, right? So we always talk about AD, LeBron. LeBron's the key, guys. AD can wait. LeBron needs to get back ASAP, but he has to be healthy. If he's not healthy, this team's going nowhere. And it's very, very unfortunate. And, of course, with LeBron as well, we talk MVP. So my big thing on the MVP was health, right?